Hi everyone. Good morning. It's Natalie here. I'm talking slowly and quietly because my partner is still in bed. It is about 5:50 in the morning, and I've been clearly watching Kassia's video while my coffee was being prepared. So I'm here to do a VR to Hecate's Crossing in Paula, talking about how I read tarot for myself. So as you can see, I had my Marielle sitting here on my desk. Here it is. I was doing some work last night with my deck and using the Hierophant as the significator. I love this Hierophant, and I'm really not looking forward to not having her in it like this in the next deck, but we'll cope. We'll always cope. So I'm going to do my morning draw. That's where the cards naturally wanted to cut. And then I draw one off the top. King of Cups. So King of Cups is my card for today. So I see what I have a need to be prepared for going to work is knowing that, yeah, it looks like I'm going to be needing to be very in charge of my emotions today. So I've got a man who is floating in the water, and absolutely comfortable, secure, surrounded by it, but in charge of it, and he can sit up and do whatever he has to do at a moment's notice, and otherwise he's going to float. He's going to float. I have keywords, and I usually write those down. Let's see, what did I write for King of Cups? Here he is. Right, Master of Self-Knowledge. There he is. Yeah, the King of Cups is mastery over your own subconscious, your black horse, your animal nature and desires. But as mere men, it's so difficult to control this horse that even the greatest of men can only do it for a short time before they crash to the ground. Which is why I have to meditate at work. I managed 3 meditation sessions of 20 minutes each yesterday during my breaks. And it was a real blessing. It really got me through the day and kept the well full so that I could continue, which is important when you work with kids that have special needs. It's not their fault when they misbehave, and yet at the same time, you want them to be independent, and you want them to take ownership and responsibility and authority over their lives, right? So what I do next, there we go, is my daily journal. King of Cups. I'll write that here. I'll write his key phrase. Not perfect, but it's early. And this is not so much a journal as a planner. And clearly, like, I'm very content with Wabi Sabi. And it's not complete for the month of May just yet. But I've got a lot of my stuff ready. I'm going to go to the front of the book for my tarot tracker and fill in today. What rock is, oh, it's one of my stones is making a run for it here. So yesterday I had the King of Wands. Today is King of Cups. There we go. So it's written in. And I might ordinarily, I've been working with, this is my journal pen collection, so it goes everywhere that my journal does. I think I would ordinarily pull from this deck, but I'm preparing to do a video about this deck tonight. So I'm not going to pull from her, he, they. Tonight or today, I'm going to work with my other one that I'm so excited about right now, which is, oh, that's right, I had a unicorn recently. Kim Krantz's Animal Spirit deck. Okay, nobody came flying out. If somebody comes literally flying out, then I go ahead and take that card. Ah, the lizard. So without knowing what the book says, the lizard for me is about paying attention to the dreams that we've had the night before. And I definitely wake up in the morning and my head is full because I've dreamed a lot, and dreaming. Sometimes I tried at one point to wake up and keep a dream journal, and it takes so much time and so much effort that I eventually stopped, because I could write about them for hours and hours, and I just don't have that time in the morning right now. So usually I can let them stick with me most of the day if I just continue to tap back into them and remember them, but I don't really, I'm so tired and it's getting on a bit, so I'm going to leave this one to sit with me and pull out the handy dandy book and read it a little bit later. Sometimes I do that and I take the book with me to work and read it and meditate on what I got. Okay, so I just went and read about lizard, and what it says about lizard, fire, it's fire first of all, and it says the lizard, okay, so instinctual, sensitive to the subtle, dreamer. The lizard is an expert in the realm of sensory perception. As if it has a sixth sense, the lizard hears what is yet to be spoken and sees what is yet to manifest. Although this is an amazing gift, it can easily wear the lizard down. Big crowds, lots of travel, or overstimulation will drain a lizard of their magical essence. This card is an indication to pull back from the bright lights and big city and return to your inner artist who's been whispering your name. So when in balance, it's artistic, telepathic, spiritual. When out of balance, elusive, non-committal, and flaky. To bring into balance a creative project. Oh my God. Nothing could be closer to the truth. Yeah. interesting, her take on it. I mean, lizards are always associated with dream time. I really like her take on it, and the advice is 100% true. I do get excruciatingly flaky when I'm kind of drained. I just start flaking out. I pull back, I pull away, I shut things out, I shut people out, and I do notice I've been doing that lately. So it is something to be aware of. It's the afternoon, so you know what that means. It's time for looking at what does Natalie do with cards in the afternoon. I will say I had a really long day. And I kind of feel a little bit like I've been dragged through a hedge backwards. Not because anybody did anything in particular. It's just been a long day. I think it's a lot already just, working with kids that have, that are already in a position of like, they have a lot of special needs. It's something entirely different when you're also working with those same kids and you realize like how little engagement their parents really give them at home. And there's a couple of kids that I've gotten really close to, and I'm beginning to realize just how dependent they really are on us to provide them with that level of love and support. So, yeah, that's just rough. And also just kind of realizing I need to make a few people maybe on my team a little bit more aware of like, hey, maybe this one child that's nonverbal and really like physically disabled as well is acting out and just dropping to the floor and sobbing for no apparent reason because she's having what's commonly referred to as grief bursts. Because her mother died in November. And her life has really been a disaster since having to move in with her dad. So, yeah. A lot of reality. And, I can't help but, I always think like, surely it's a thing, like it's normal that adults would walk into that situation and, you would just feel a lot of love for those kids. But I'm beginning to realize that that's really not always the case. I don't doubt the hard work and care, ability to care and do a competent job by my coworkers, but I'm not really sure how many of them would say they actually really love the kids. And I don't blame them because the job, I haven't been doing it very long, and I can absolutely understand how someone in that position would get burned out. So I don't really have any judgment of it either. I think I'm kind of just treasuring the fact that I have this time with the kids, and that a lot of the things that I don't like doing on the job, like assisting the ones who are, they may be 13, but they're not able to go to the bathroom independently. And their parents may still send them to school when they're really sick with diarrhea. Sometimes I'm that guy who has to attend to it. It's really tough. It's like, really, you're gonna not keep your kid at home when they feel terrible and someone else has to clean them up and they soil themselves? Like, that's like, really, that's your choice. But again, I don't know what the situation is for those parents either. You just never know. Anyway, a lot of times when I get home in the afternoon, and I've had that kind of a day, and lately I have, before or after I crash and spend like, at least an hour, hour and a half, maybe sometimes 2.5 hours sleeping and recovering, I will just kind of sit with the cards and look for comfort or balance, and seek to seek to just rebalance or gain insight. Yeah, I do. So I've got my Marielle out. I'm going to flip the camera around in a second here, and I'm going to tell you as well about the practices that I'm going to start this month in May. So I should also start by maybe showing the way I've been working with my Apparition Spirit Speak deck over the last month. I don't know. I'd like to keep this one and maybe the new ones I've got coming. I have the original Spirit Speak on its way, and I believe it's either the Spirit Speak or the Luminous Void just arrived at my friend Amy's house. So I'm really excited. And I'm not going to be able to get over there right away, but it's totally fine. I am excited to work those decks, though. They seem really pretty exciting. I'm just liking the open space. But with this one, I like the darkness. Light, dark, fun. Mwah! Love that. Okay. I'm silly because I had a big, long day. All right. You know what's great to do when you're feeling silly because you had a big, long day? Read some cards. It's good. Okay. So that said, I'll show you how I work with my Spirit Speak deck. We'll flip this here, camera around, kind of like we had it this morning. Let's just see. Oh, look at that. Here we go. That's something somewhat close in angle. Yeah, that'll do. That'll do. Nice crystals, a little Thoth deck. Okay. So here are my little friends. We might actually need to be there we go. That's better. Okay. So these I do not riffle. They are way too, I don't know, like kind of rigidy cardstock that's just so delicious you want to eat it for breakfast. And I kind of just don't want to mess with them like that, so I do tend to shuffle them overhanded. And the way I would use these if I were seeking balance is through doing a TarotPulse spread. And I'm not going to walk us through that right now because it will take a long time and I don't think it's necessary. I have lots of videos on my channel of doing that and actually walking through it, or of having done it, and here are my wonderful apparition cards. But I don't really feel like I need to do that right now for us. So I'm going to forego that right now and just say simply that, what I would be doing here is like flipping, I'd be going this way. I would be flipping through, specifically looking for Justice, the Hermit, Temperance, and Strength. And then with each of those, there is, like, here's the Hermit. Hermit relates to Pentacles, so I pull the Hermit out, and the very next Pentacle card that comes up, ta-da, Seven of Pentacles, I would place it under him. And then you just carry on after you've shuffled, etc., and until you find your next one. Here's Strength. Strength is Wands. I said I wasn't going to go through this, but look at me going through it, right? There's a 5. So you go with the corresponding one. And between the 4, what you get is this beautiful reading that balances and harmonizes. And it really tells you where in your day, in your moment, there is some sort of, it gives you an overview of like what's balanced, what is less balanced, what your challenges are, what's working well. And I have found it to be an undeniably brilliant, what's the word I want? It seems to unfailingly show me what's going on. And sometimes that's really simple and it's just a validation. And so I can look at that and say, like, wow, I really feel good now that I've seen that. Other days, less so. Other days, it will tell me, like, look,
these two areas, they're good. But like these other two areas, you've got some serious stuff that's not quite, not quite pulled together. Like, hey, what's going wrong? Like, what's happening for you? Specifically, what's happening for you is, oh, look, there's extra drama going on. And this is not drama between your, in your thoughts or your, I don't know, whatever that is, needs to be happening. So, it has been really good as a tool of insight to work with the TarotPulse. And since my personal practice as a Buddhist for so long has been related to that, this is a really remarkable tool. It's a really remarkable tool that I intend to continue to use and work with for the foreseeable future, in all honesty. So I do like having a deck that is essentially my, it kind of is a comfort deck, really. It's not going to lie to me. It's not going to tell me, like, no, you're out of balance and everything's, or you're perfectly balanced and everything's great. Just don't worry. I mean, they never, a good tarot deck or spread will not exactly do that for you anyway. Got some schmutz on there. Don't know where that came from. I get random schmutz from pens and markers that appears out of nowhere from time to time. But anyway, yeah, I mean, a deck like this has that kind of gentle, friendly, approachable simplicity that works beautifully for that spread. All right, so that said, another one that I'm going to be working with this month, and you will see on my my Marielle deck, I have added numbers and glyphs. So after watching Benabelle's latest Sight See the Tarot video, where she spoke about the first operation and doing a general reading Paul Foster case style, which is admittedly something I completely avoided when I was younger. I found it too rigid, too much to cope with, like too esoteric, doesn't give me, too in my head, which I was already wrestling with as an actor. I needed more space to be intuitive. And at this moment in my life, that is not the issue. Having that, I'm very curious about the underlying patterns that are within the tarot and how those play out, how they function, how they work, and so on. And so the card counting and the ritualized method of getting into that card counting is something I really appreciate. So the way I would generally get into that would be to start with the shuffling, of course, but then after that quick first shuffle, would be to identify a significator. So I'm going to do that. I think I will either go, I've been specifically looking at lately, why am I so attracted to this Hierophant? Well, in so many ways, because it's hard to even describe. I don't even know how to describe it. I feel like that Hierophant so much of the time. The outcast Babylon who is completely misunderstood and yet holds the key of, profound compassion, profound benevolence, and puts that energy of her heart into nourishing and nurturing the harlots and abominations of the earth, right? I'm not sure how a baby could be a harlot, but I can see that these definitely look like abominations. And they're really upsetting to some people. I think probably I find a lot of people, I'm so itchy today, I'm sorry guys, I keep scratching my nose. I find that a lot of people are turned off by these two babies, where I find them to be, I get it. I really get it. I get why they're lovable. I get why she loves them so much that she literally brings them to her breasts, nurtures them with the compassion, the milk of human compassion and kindness, and wants them to be loved. It just makes sense. And there's so many people in our society that are like that and that are not receiving that at all. So I don't know. I'd never contemplated this as a significator, but somehow, I think it was last night, I started to and thought, I wonder how that would change this particular reading. And normally, because I'm a Sagittarius and I have so much fire and a lot of fire in my chart, a lot of water in my chart, and a lot of air. No earth, interestingly, but, I would also usually choose the Queen of Wands. So when I've been reading with the Queen of Wands, what has come up with this one has been things fall in the Wands pile. And I thought, I wonder what would change if I changed the significator. So I'm going to experiment with that this month. And I've chosen to use instead the Hierophant in this deck as the significator, just to see. So I'm going to just show this reading, or show this particular first operation, but I'm not going to do the general spread. You can see, I will link Benabelle's video, but I will show the first operation because she strongly recommends that everyone who wants to practice it do it daily as a means of programming your cards, programming that ritual. And I feel like my cards instantly just understood it. I don't know how to describe that. It was just the right thing. I guess I've been reading for long enough, and there's something in the pattern of this work that I think is just already inherently a part of the cards and a part of their language and their lineage. I think it's probably less about programming the deck and more about programming the reader. Okay. And I also like to overhand shuffle my Marielle. I didn't used to be able to riffle my Marielle at all, or very well. It's so big, but it's like any prop. It's like working as an actor and a movement person. You have props. Play with them and work with them long enough, no matter how impossible they seem, you'll eventually get to a point where you can handle them and manage them. So, if it's important to you, you'll find a way. Okay. So after a nice shuffle, to practice this one, and I'll practice it sort of facing the camera. It already shows me where it wants to cut. I'm then going to cut this pile a second time. Oops, I want to make sure I got plenty of space for these piles. So here is the second cut and the third cut. So in Jewish mysticism, each of these piles represents a letter in the sacred name of God, right? Which can also be, there's a number of ways of looking at it. I'm not going to try and explain the whole thing because I won't do it justice. In fact, Benabelle does it wonderful justice. Paul Foster Case gives it wonderful justice. I would say Benabelle's is a lot more accessible than Paul Foster Case's original, but if you have holistic tarot, it is chapter 11, the first operation, right? So what I'm doing is I'm separating these two piles out, or these piles, And here are, oops, there we go. These are their significations, right? So we're starting the opposite direction and we're reading from right to left. So we're starting with, so it's Yod, Hey, Vav, Hey. So that's why it's H1 and H2. Wands, okay, cups, swords, and pentacles, okay. And they correspond then, of course, with specific letter, parts of the tree of life, various parts of Jewish mysticism that I actually really can't speak about because I don't know it. And yet somehow that doesn't seem to hold me up or cause any problems. And I am going to get more into doing stuff with that, but suffice it to say, right now it's not a thing. Now, what I would do is you go through and pick up each of the piles and you sift through it to find your significator. And she came up in the Wands pile for us. So then if I were moving on to another reading, and there are many readings that Benabel puts in Holistic Tarot that I'm bookmarking, and I'm going to begin working through these, but they start with the first operation, right? So ideally what would happen, so this came up in the Wands pile. So as this comes up in the Wands pile, and this is very relevant, obviously for me, this is coming up in the career pile, which is interesting because I changed significators, and here she is coming up in the pile that would be most likely to cover things like creative work, career, those sorts of things. There's some really juicy cards in this pile. Really juicy. Wow. So if I were going to go forward and do a reading, I would probably let go of the rest of these cards, move them to the side, put these in a circle if I was doing a general reading, do the card counting method, which is where these are on here, which tells me which cards, you land on and pull out. Then let's say you string those, let's say it were these three. You'd string these three cards together and in order, and read them in that order. And I have been practicing that. I have been practicing that method for 5 days, I guess, since Sunday. And it's been really, really insightful. So I don't know. I think at this point, the way I'm reading for myself is to, look at what my needs are. Right now, my needs are to understand this particular method of reading. And so right now I'm going to use it to read for myself. I'm going to practice practice the first operation pretty regularly. I think probably this month I'm going to look at learning the opening of the key, which is a massive, long reading that Benabel has a class for on her site. But yeah, I will at least do this much every single day. She recommends it. I'm a big, hey, if it's recommended, try it, see what happens, can't hurt anything kind of person. So I will do at least that much, and possibly also try variations of spreads that come after that, most of which involve card counting, which is why I numbered them. So yeah, that's how I read for myself, folks. Mostly what I want is insight and knowledge, something that feeds my curiosity. And occasionally I'm looking for comfort and empathy. And when I need that, and I think it's fair, I think that's totally fair to go to your cards, to go to oracles, pick them up, shuffle them, the ones that really resonate, the ones that really feel good. This deck, it can tell me the most difficult things on the planet, and it will tell me with utmost compassion, empathy, and, truth. And I love it for that. I feel seen and heard by this deck. It's just the truth. This one is like having a really lighthearted friend that comes over to hang out and will cuddle you and pet your hair. That's kind of how it feels. It will be honest with you and tell you, like, your hair is kind of dirty and you probably should wash it, but it's cool. I don't really mind that much. I can sit here and pet your hair for you anyway. But really, before you go to bed, you should wash it. That's this deck. This deck isn't even interested in your hair. You know what I mean? Like, this deck is like, look, everyone has hair. That's not the issue, right? So anyway, yeah. Just very, very different voices for very different purposes. And, God, this whole system of the tarot is such a gift. What a blessing. So anyway, folks, that's how I read for myself. Talk to you soon.